Welcome to Positive Outcomes, where leaders turn hard-won experience into income, impact, and freedom.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Positive Outcomes. Here we see professionals and leaders and entrepreneurs. We all come together to use our expertise to generate income, impact, and freedom. And for this show today, we have another amazing. I don't bring everybody here, right? I got to screen them to make sure they're positive outcomers before we bring them to the show. So I am going to go ahead and introduce our guest for today. And of course, we are looking forward, as usual, to an amazing conversation. So today's guest, which I am super excited, today's guest, Nadia, is a COO of Jeffries Wealth Management. She is a seasoned Wall Street executive with over 20 years of experience at firms including JP Morgan, American Express, and Jeffries, right? Beyond her corporate leadership, Nadia is the founder of Inspired by Nadia, and we're going to hear all about that in a minute. A coaching and speaking platform empowering high achieving women and mothers to lead with authenticity, purpose, and resilience. I love that. She is a proud mom of four, and she brings her personal journey of balancing corporate leadership with single motherhood into her work. And we women, we need that, right? Inspiring others to turn obstacles into opportunities, to turn that seed of challenge into opportunities. She also serves as a chair of the board of trustees at Central State Healthcare System and is widely recognized as a thought leader, storyteller, and advocate for authentic leadership, which is near and dear to my heart. Nadia, you are welcome to Positive Outcomes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We are so looking forward to this conversation. And I'm sure I already shared this to a couple of women in leadership in corporate America, expertise, and entrepreneurs that we have someone coming that I think you might want to listen to this person. So we are very impressed and happy to have you here. So let's go ahead and dive in, right? You have led high stake environments for more than 2 decades.
Yes, it'll be 25 years next summer.
Wow. It doesn't go with the way you look at all. What leadership lesson stands out the most?
I think, and you touched on this a little bit in the introduction, but I think the importance of being an authentic person, that makes you a better leader. And there are a few different reasons why I believe this and why I've seen it play out over the course of my career. I think the number one reason is that when you can be in an environment, whether it's a corporate environment or your own business or a nonprofit that you're working with, when you can go in and be yourself, you have more energy to put into that role, to put into your clients, to put into that business. But when you have to go into an environment and pretend to be someone else in order to fit in, or in order to, fit in with a mold that you feel is there, or a certain personality type that is in the organization that's not necessarily you, that takes up a lot of energy. And so now you could be spending, 20%, 30% of your time trying to be someone else, and then the remainder working on your business and trying to be successful and trying to serve your clients. Whereas if you can be your authentic self and you can find a place where you can be authentic, you could put in 100% into that job, 100% into those clients. So it saves time. It's actually more efficient to be authentic. I also think you build better relationships with people. And we all know it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Exactly.
And when you're authentic, people can feel it. And I think that you're better at networking and you're better at building those personal relationships that help you get ahead when you're just yourself, when you can bring yourself to work or to whatever you're doing on a daily basis. So authenticity, I think, is absolutely the most important piece of being a good leader.
That is so amazing. And I see that you have a coaching program, and that's some of the things that it will help a lot of people learn how to be themselves. Why? Because some people feel like if they're not talking like this person or acting like this person, they're not going to have a seat at the table, right? What do you have to say about that? Like struggling with self-sabotage or struggling with imposter syndrome and trying to be who they're not, like you just said. What would you advise someone facing that situation?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome, I don't think it ever goes away. I think we all have it. I think it ebbs and flows. I can tell you, we talked about almost 25 years on Wall Street, and I'm this, corporate executive, and I've been in big boardrooms and led big teams. And when I went and started Inspired by Nadia, my coaching program, I had, I think, the worst imposter syndrome probably that I've had over the course of my career, right? Because now I'm going into a new role, questioning myself. Am I qualified to be a coach? Am I ready to be a coach? So I faced imposter syndrome after 25 years of my career. So I don't think it goes away, but I think what makes you able to kind of overcome it and to keep moving forward anyway is definitely being confident in yourself, right? And again, that's something where people say, okay, but how do I build that confidence? And I personally think it comes from consistency. I think when you show up as yourself on a consistent basis, you keep promises to yourself. So you set goals and you move forward and you achieve those goals, even the smallest goals. You start to build trust in yourself. And when you trust yourself, you come across confidently because you know you got this, right? Yes, because you've achieved these goals and you've done these things. So if you trust yourself, you become more confident. And as you become more confident, it's easier to overcome that imposter syndrome. I don't think it goes away, but I think you just get better at moving forward despite it.
Wow. I love the way you said it because people always think that you can fight it and it can go away. But I think what you're explaining is that we can cope with it depending on our thinking, being consistent, thinking that you're able, building the confidence. And that's a different way of saying it, which honestly, I've not heard someone explain it like that. So again, to you listening to me right now, I know I have a lot of coaches and consultants coming to positive outcomes. You are able to do it. Just keep showing up, believing that you're able to do it. Okay, so back to Nadia's question, right? How did you balance corporate leadership with raising four children, and how did that shape your perspective on resilience? I have five, and sometimes I'm like, okay. Wow. So how did you balance that all?
So I'm sure you get the same reaction that I do when you tell people how many kids
Oh,
you have. I'm crazy.
yes, I get it all the time.
I've heard this concept of work-life blend instead of work-life balance. And it's basically about not necessarily being 50-50 all the time. So in any given moment, you might not be completely balanced between work and home or between being a leader and being a mom. So my goal really has been throughout the course of my career to be balanced over the long term. So on any given day, I might be a little bit, on one side or the other, right? So a day like today where I'm working from home, my daughter came home from school around 2:30. I kind of turned off that, executive mode and turned on my mode and made sure that she had an afternoon snack. And once she had her snack, then I went back to checking emails and to finishing up my work for the day. So like when I look back on my day tonight, I will probably feel balanced because I took time out to be the best mom that I can be. And I also took time to, do my work and check in with my team and answer emails. But at any given moment, I was probably one way or the other. So I think we shouldn't put too much pressure on ourselves to be perfectly balanced all of the time, but instead to look over the course of a day or a week or a month or a year and then feel, ask yourself if you've been balanced, and you probably have. But I think trying to achieve that perfect balance at every moment of the day, we're not being fair to ourselves. It's not even possible.
Amazing. So looking at your day and your journey so far, having the kids and being a woman in leadership and all that, what are some of the challenges you faced and how did you overcome?
Yeah, so definitely, I think one of them is not necessarily, being the only in a room. I think that's something that I've had to get comfortable with over the years. And so it could be being the only woman in a boardroom, right? Or on a Zoom call. That's happened many times. It could be being the only person of color in a meeting or in a room, even a room with hundreds of people. There have been times where I've looked around and really haven't seen anyone like myself. So that's something that I've had to get really comfortable with. I think it goes back to being authentic. and being yourself. I think it goes back to building those relationships. I truly believe that if I have a 30-second to 60-second conversation with anyone, I can probably find a commonality. And it may not be our gender, it may not be, where we're from or our nationalities or our race, but I can usually hone in on something that we have in common and make that connection with that person. And again, that's a skill that was built over time, but it's definitely been a challenge. And it's also a challenge to become a leader in that kind of environment where you may be the one and only, where you may not look like everyone else. I think it gives you an advantage in that you bring a different perspective to the room. You bring a different, fresh, idea that people might not have, and you stand out naturally, right?
Amazing.
So when I'm on a call and I'm the only woman, my voice stands out naturally. So you have to use it to your advantage, but that's definitely been one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest obstacles for sure.
Wow, that is super amazing. Use that uniqueness of yours as it's an advantage because when you speak,
Absolutely.
like when I
Yeah.
speak, I know I sound different, but I know everybody's just listening, like, oh my gosh, she sounds different. Where are you from? Use
Right.
that as an advantage. And then you touch on something that, because I've been in situations where I work in, I'm like, wow, I have three things that I'm like a woman and I have an accent and I don't like all of that. But you touch on something that I've talked about on this show before that, and Maxwell taught us that too. Everybody communicates and few connect. And I like the way you nailed it in saying that in the first few seconds, you'll find something to connect with that person because no matter what you have to offer, they have to connect with you first to even listen to you. Do you want to give us a little nugget of some of the ways you do this?
Yeah, so I think even something as asking, how was your day? How was your weekend, right? How was your weekend? What were you up to? And people love sharing what they did for the weekend. And so they might say they took one of their kids to sports practice, and I'd say, oh, what sport? Basketball. Oh, my daughter plays basketball also, right? So that's an easy way. Another way could just be if you're talking about whatever the subject of what you're talking about. So if it's an update meeting, on something that happened last week, on a big project that wrapped up last week. What did you think of the project? How do you think it went? What do you see us doing next, right? Just striking up those conversations and having small talk. My kids make fun of me that I talk to everyone. So it could be a gas station, it could be the coffee shop, it could be the supermarket line. I'm usually striking up a conversation with someone. And part of it is being naturally somewhat extroverted, but I think it also has been great practice for me in terms of having those conversations. So I will literally talk to anyone, and sometimes they may not respond, right? You might smile at someone and say good morning, and they might not respond, and that's fine. I'll just, have a conversation with the next person. And I think especially for young people, a lot of the personal interactions that you have are over Zoom, are over the phone. You're looking at TikToks and YouTube and Instagram. I do think that those young people need to make an even bigger effort to practice on having some of those small talk conversations because they do mean a lot. I feel I've learned so much from having conversations with people about myself, about them, about different opportunities, right? You strike
Right.
up a conversation
Mhm.
with someone and they tell you about some opportunity that you never know about, and you go home and you do your research, and
Yep.
it's a great fit for you. There's just so
Amazing.
many reasons I could go on and on and on, but I think having those conversations, being able to have those conversations is huge.
I love it. So what will you tell like someone that is a total introvert
Yeah.
and they don't even know how to start? Like they want to really have that conversation and they just I don't know if they're afraid or what. What advice will you give someone like that?
Yeah, I think definitely starting small. Right? So having, it doesn't need to be a long conversation, and you don't need to start by trying to talk to the
Everything.
CEO of your company. Right? That's a very conversation that maybe, you want to be prepared for. But like I said, it could be somebody who is in the elevator with you. It could be someone in the cafeteria who's in front of you in line, and you just say good morning. So I think start small, smile, which I know sounds trivial, but it makes you look inviting. I think when you smile, you feel more confident. So just smiling at someone, even if you're not saying anything, is a way of communicating without saying anything. And then I always think in anything that I approach where I'm a little bit hesitant or I have some fear, I always think, what's the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst
I
thing
love
that can
that.
come out of this?
Yes.
Right? So if I say hi to the person getting coffee in front of me online at work, what's the worst thing that can happen? They don't
Wow.
say hi back,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They look at me, they say, she was friendly, but I'm not going to respond. That is literally the worst thing. They're not going to hurt me. They probably won't even remember
Yeah.
the interaction 2 hours later when they're grabbing lunch because they're probably, their mind was somewhere else and they've moved on from that moment. So, I when I think of the worst case scenario in having a chat, it doesn't seem to be that bad. I think that makes me feel less scared.
That is really amazing. So we can start small, and we don't necessarily have to start at work. We can start, like she said, at a grocery store, gas station, at the park, you're hiking, whatever you do at home, because you want to start in your comfortable space, and then you can now take it up. I actually love that. So Nadia, tell us about the platform Inspired by Nadia, right? What really even inspired you?
I naturally mentor and talk to a lot of young people, young women, young people of color, young professionals about how to move forward in their careers. It's something that I've done, throughout my entire career. And it's something that's really important to me because when I started out, I'm a first generation American. My parents are from Guyana, South America, and neither of them went to college. When I started out kind of on the whole college application process, I really didn't have anyone who had been through the experience that could help me. And I relied on a lot of programs that were dedicated to helping first generation students or diverse students. And I feel like those really helped me be the person that I am today. And so I've always wanted to give back to those organizations and always wanted to give back in a way where I can teach young people or young women from what I learned, right? Use my experience to teach them. And I would say as I got further along in my career, my need and my want to inspire others increased. And I think, it's just from knowing so much and learning so much and learning through experience, I just feel like I have a lot to give. It's almost like it wants to burst out of me. Every night I journal and I write down 4 things that I really want to achieve. First one, every night, the first one that I write is inspire and impact. And that was before I came up with the idea of Inspired by Nadia. It's just something that's really important to me, and I love being able to impact people in a positive way. The second one is to be the best mom ever. The third one is to be physically and mentally in peak condition, whatever that means, right? It could mean working out, it could mean meditating, journaling. And then the fourth one is to eventually meet my forever partner and get married again. So those are the 4 things that I try to manifest and write about in my journal every night. And so, I kept writing that line, inspire and impact others, inspire and impact others. And then one day I just decided to go for it and to start Inspired by Nadia, which is a coaching business. And like you said, a speaking platform, really targeting high achieving women who are trying to reach their peak potential, who maybe feel a little bit stuck in their careers or stuck trying to balance work and home and feel like they just have more. They want to follow their passions. They want to, reach the highest level. And I want to help them do that based on what I've learned over the last 25 years.
That is so amazing. And just listening to you talk inspired me, right? So I can imagine how the journey that you're going to take these women through. I wish I met you 20 years ago when I was still in corporate America. Because Nadia, I'm telling you, like rounding at Hopkins, they used to tell me, speak English, speak English. What are you saying? And I have a doctor by my name, right? And I'm climbing up the career path, but it was different. And I had to find a way to manage it all. But for whatever reason, I did. And I kept going all the way till I became the executive in these companies. But it was quite a journey at the beginning of getting there. And I think that if I had someone like you in my life at that time, it would have really changed the story. But again, it was the journey. I'm just saying this is that if you're listening to us right now, a lot of us think that we don't need a coach, or a lot of us think that we don't need a mentor, but this is what she's offering. I will check her out and I will talk to her, because speaking from my own personal experience, if I had someone like that to mentor me, coach me in my journey as a leader in all these great organizations, I'm telling you, I would not have gone through all the pains and sleepless nights and anxiety that I had. So That's my high pitch marketing sales for it.
And I think having a mentor is just a way of investing in yourself.
Yes.
And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a financial investment. It's just investing time into yourself. It forces you to kind of reflect on where you want to go and where you are and what the gap is and how you fill that gap in. So I really think that having mentors and coaches and therapists or whatever makes the most sense for you is crucial to success as well.
I love it. I cannot agree like the most, because that totally changes everything. You have someone that you can share ideas with, someone that can give you some directions and guidance, and you have to be teachable. So you said it already, how you help high achieving women and mothers to step into being authentic and being purposeful in what they're doing. Can you tell me, I'm trying to get from your perspective, from your journey, from your story, a challenging moment, because a lot of our purpose are birthed from our pain. So I want to tie that into a part of your journey, which you kind of mentioned a little bit, that really made you see that void in high achieving women, how you can really help them. What aspect of your journey led you to that?
Yeah, I would say there's two things. The first one, I definitely hit what I would call a rock bottom in early 2023. And at that time, I had all four kids. I had three older kids. So right now I have three teenagers and I have a 3-year-old. So this was about 2 years ago. She was just 1 year old. And I was working full time, had the four kids. I'm single, like I said. And so, I have a very strong family support system and a good co-parenting relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when all the lights go up and
It's
everyone's
mommy.
in bed, it's really just me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that can be very difficult at times. And I just felt burned out. And I had a good face on, right? So I was still smiling and I was showing up at work. And from the outside, everyone thought, wow, she's really managing this all so well. But inside, I was tired. I was burned out. And I didn't know how I could keep going forward at that pace. And so there's a few things that I started doing. Like I said, I've talked about meditation, right? And getting quiet and really taking time to listen to that voice in my head, to listen to, how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and start to think about, where I want to be and what goals I want to achieve. Journaling every night, I think, is really important. It gives you an outlet. It helps you get your reflections on paper. I love going back to my old journal entries to see how I was feeling and to see how far I've come since I wrote them. I do try to work out every day. I think that physical movement of your body helps you to get out of your head and into your body. That's really important to me. So I started to work all of these things into my routine, and I felt better and better. And I think, going through that healing journey, even though I learned so much over the 25 years of working on Wall Street, I think that healing journey from early 2023 to when I started Inspired by Nadia is probably the most exponential growth I've had as a woman. And it was because I was doing all of these routines. And the other thing I would say is trying to be everything to everyone is difficult. And I really think that as mothers, as women, we are trained to be selfless and to give, right? And one thing that I had to learn to get comfortable with, because I wasn't comfortable at first, was to be selfish sometimes. Right. And so all of those things that I talked about, the journal, the meditation, working out, those are non-negotiables for me. Yep. And sometimes I feel selfish. I feel bad when I have to tell the kids, mommy's going to go up into her home gym for a half hour or 45 minutes. I know you're hungry, but I'll get you a snack and then I'll cook dinner later because I need to get this workout. And I feel bad, right? Because I'm not supposed to do that. But me being selfish in that way helps me to be a better mom. It helps me to fill my cup so then I can give to everyone else. And so that is something that I did not do 5 years ago. I did not do 10 years ago. I didn't do 20 years ago. I was in that give mode. I was selfless. I was a martyr. And now I've learned that I really have to give to myself first. And when I do, I can show up for everyone else.
Wow, that is super, super amazing. And you touch on the part, because I see a lot of women, they avoid the problem, right? And they feel like by some magic, it's just going to go away. I'm not going to deal with that right now. And they just put it under the table, they shove it on the side. And they just keep going. And I feel like it's gonna come back, and it's gonna come back really intense and harder. And I want
Yes.
you to just, I know you're probably gonna say something that will help all of us about that mindset of not sitting with yourself and really dealing with it and just keep going and hoping that it will fix itself. What do you have to say about
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we ignore problems or we ignore issues, they just become louder. And I don't know if you've ever heard that. I don't know if it was a saying or if it was from a book, but when the universe or God or maybe it's your own inner voice is trying to tell you something. At first, it starts out as a whisper. You need to take more time for yourself. You need to rest. You need to pivot your career to something that you love. And you may not listen to it. And so what happens is that voice gets louder and louder and louder until it's literally shouting at you, until you are at the point where you can't even take a step forward because you're going in the wrong direction. And that inner voice has been trying to tell you that, but you haven't listened. And so I think it's all about, when I talk about getting quiet, and I have a 5-pillar method that I teach and inspired by Nadia. It's called the Nadia method because I wasn't very creative.
that? Sounds
It's
great, though.
it's NADIA. The first one is navigating with clarity. And that's where I talk about getting quiet and listening to yourself. And I'll just run through the rest quickly. But the next one is aligning with your purpose and really understanding your why behind whatever you're doing. Because if you have a strong why, that's what's going to motivate you every day and get up and go to work. My why, a lot of times, it's my children. And that's a very strong why for me to keep motivated even when times get tough. The D is disrupting limiting beliefs, which we all have. It goes back to the imposter syndrome that we talked about. I is initiating intentional action and just doing something. Just don't sit still. Do something, even if it's the smallest step towards your goal. Just do something. And then the final A is achieving with authenticity. And it's all about being yourself.
Oh wow, I love that. I can't wait for you to share your information about your coaching program, of course, because I know a lot of people are definitely going to benefit that. What role has that played in your work, of course, as a coach and a storyteller?
Yeah, I think it's important. It's an important skill to be able to tell a story, and every story kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It should have a point, a moral of the story. And the reason I say it's an important skill is what I've found as a leader and someone who has built teams over the years is that when you're interviewing for a role or when you're putting your resume together and your cover letter together, what you're doing is telling a story, and you have to get really, really good at telling that story. Like I said, it has to have a beginning, middle, and an end. Your point should come across. I tell everyone that if you're trying to pivot into a new career like you and I have done, it's all about, you don't have to have the perfect experience and you don't have to have exactly what they've put in the job description. If you can tell your story well, if you can tell your story about what your experience is and what you've done and what you want to do and why you're valuable, what makes you valuable to this role or this organization, if you get really good at telling that story, you can do very well in the interview process. You can have a great resume. If it's the college application process and you're interviewing, right? Like I can come up with so many instances in your life where being able to tell a story well is a skill that will help you. So to me, it's really important from that perspective, but it's also just so important for all of us to tell our stories to other people so that they can learn from us and that they can get inspired. It is scary sharing details about your life. I remember, when I became a single mom and I was scared to tell people that, I was divorced and, I didn't have a husband. People always assume, oh, your husband, he must think this. I'm like, actually, I don't have one. It's just me. At first I was scared to tell people that. I was scared to tell my story. And now I'm actually empowered by it.
Right,
And I hope that other
exactly.
people are
Yeah.
empowered by it. I
Mhm.
hope they can learn from me. And I hope they can look at me and hear my story. And even if they get one little thing from my story, even if they learn one little nugget, to me, it was worth sharing. So I think storytelling is a really important skill to have. I also really think that so many of us that have, had success in our careers and have had long tenures should really tell our story as a way to help young people that are coming behind us.
That is absolutely amazing. And you have really nailed it because some people feel like being divorced, they will look at them in a different way. But actually, that is what is making people want to listen to how you cope through that journey.
Yes.
And I've had people that just don't want anyone, I don't want anyone to know that I'm not married. Please don't share it. And I don't know, they're like worried about being their authentic self, like you rightfully said it at the beginning. And that is what people actually need to hear to really embrace their journey. So I just want to encourage all of us out here today. All of us have different journeys. We are all going through something, and use that as a seed to seed and fuel that opportunity that is inside of you. And Nadia, at the end of this, she will give her information in case anyone want to contact her or work with her, because this is just like amazing. Now, let me look at other questions here because I want to get everything out of you before you leave positive outcomes today. Okay. So how do people contact you for this coaching business?
Yes. So my website is inspiredbynadia.com. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for workshops. You can sign up for one-on-ones with me. You can see my upcoming speaking engagements. So you can come see me in person. And then I'm also on Instagram, and my handle is inspired_Nadia. So inspired by Nadia. And then I'm also on TikTok, which is new for me, and my handle there is just inspired by Nadia. So definitely come visit me in one of those places. And I really love for people to come and learn from me, and I feel like I learn from everyone that I come into contact with also. So just look forward to sharing.
That is amazing. That's amazing. One thing I forgot to ask, you had mentioned fear being a factor, right? Yeah. So how do you personally push through fear, and what advice will you give others listening to you right now?
Yeah, I think fear is something that we'll all face. And I think that, again, it's like everything else, it takes practice. And so I think putting ourselves in situations where we might be a little bit uncomfortable are actually good ways to practice being scared, but acting anyway. And obviously, I'm not talking about putting ourselves in dangerous situations, but maybe if you're scared of public speaking, you volunteer to do a presentation to your team, right? Maybe if you're scared of running a long distance, instead of running 5 miles, you say, you know what, I'm just going to run 1 mile today, and then next week I'll try 1.5, and then the following week I'll run 2 miles. So I talk a lot about, inspired by Nadia, I talk a lot about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and embracing discomfort. The thing is, when we are scared, it's usually a sign that we are doing something new and exciting. We're embarking on something that we've never done before. And that's where the fear is coming from. So I think we all have to learn to, instead of looking at fear in a very negative way, we can almost flip it and think to ourselves, why am I scared? And usually you're scared because you're about to do something monumental. You're about to take this initiative that you've never done before. You're about to challenge yourself. And from challenge comes growth. So I think we just need to stop being scared of being scared and actually embrace it.
Wow, I love it. She said, do it afraid.
Yes.
But
do it anyway.
She says, do it anyway. Do it afraid. Because if you're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect emotions, the perfect feeling, the perfect opportunity, you might never have it. So go by faith and just do it afraid. And she mentioned embrace discomfort. And when you embrace discomfort, I've learned that that is where growth takes place.
Absolutely.
That is
Absolutely.
where
I can agree more.
So embrace, I'm rewriting, you guys will pay me for all this nuggets. I'm repeating it for you guys. Embrace discomfort and do it afraid. She has said it. Just go for it and do it afraid. So Nadia, what is one challenge that you faced as a single mother in a corporate leadership role that later on became a strength in your coaching and speaking work?
Yeah, I think it's really just asking myself and learning how to rely on myself. I think when I was younger, you look for a savior. You're hoping someone's going to come and save you. When you're a child, it's your parent. That parent's going to come, even if I falter, my mom, my dad will come pick me up. And then as you get older, maybe it's your best friends that you rely on all the time. When you get married, it's your spouse that you rely on. And something that I've learned recently, kind of over the last couple of years, as I've gone through my healing journey, is that the person that I need to rely on every day is myself. No one is coming to save me. No one is coming to pick me up when I fall. I have to learn to do that on my own. And it's much easier said than done. And we could probably spend another podcast kind of talking about that concept and how you learn to do that. But I think that's something that has worked well for me in my career as well, because now I see, if there's a project that needs to get done or a deadline that we need to hit, obviously I have a wonderful team and we all work together. But I have learned to really rely on myself and trust myself and to be my own savior, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So believing in you, be that discipline, and it all comes back to you, right?
Yes.
You can't point the fingers. It all comes back to you. In Africa, they used to say that when you point your finger, just one is pointing towards the next person, four of them point right back to you.
Yeah.
So you have to take the ownership. You have to take the responsibility for your own life. So that is just super, super inspiring. So what is the bigger vision for Inspired by Nadia?
I just want to help as many people as I can. I don't have any big kind of lofty goals. My goal is really to it's breadth in terms of being able to help as many people as I possibly can. And I think that's what I love about speaking. You can reach, large audiences at one time. I love Instagram. Social media is not something that I've embraced, that I'm, in my 40s, all of a sudden I'm learning how to use it. My kids actually teach me how to do these posts and everything. Being able to reach large audiences is definitely important to me. But I also want to have depth of relationships. I want to really get to know people. I want to coach people over time so that I can see when they have their successes, so I can see that the progression that they're making. So I just want to help people.
That's amazing.
If I can help someone, if someone could say, you know what, Nadia, I really learned something when I spoke to you, that to me is success.
Oh, amazing. I can feel the energy of the love for mankind. Even as you were talking, it's very genuine and I can feel it. So if there's a listener listening to us right now, a listener that is balancing a demanding corporate role and that they feel pulled to start their own thing. A lot of people that come here, like you said, with outcome we turn our expertise into income, impact, and freedom. And they have that pull from really challenging corporate positions and they really feel like they need to do something for themselves. What is the first step that you recommend for someone like that?
And so I fortunately did not choose one or the other. And I just went to my employer and said, hi, I'm already coaching people on a regular basis here in the office. It's something that I love to do. And I want to do it, as a business. And I got their approval, right? And so the great thing about that is I can kind of build my business and keep my corporate role. And they definitely have a lot of synergies. There's things that I see in my corporate role that help with my business and vice versa. So I don't think you have to choose either or. And then I would say, even if you don't fully launch a business, just start to do things that get you in that direction. So if you're in corporate and you want to be a coach, start coaching people that you work with. It doesn't have to be paid. It doesn't have to be a formal mentorship program. Grab coffee with people, listen to their stories and listen to the issues that they're having or something that they want to achieve and just start coaching them, right? Nothing's stopping you from doing that. Just because you don't have the technical title of a coach doesn't mean you can't be a coach. I feel like I've been a coach, from day one when I started. So just start to do things that will move you in that direction. Start to get reps, start to get practice, start to get that consistency. And then when you're ready to launch, you will have all of this experience under your belt. So don't wait. I guess is another thing I would say. And just do it. It goes back to initiating intentional action. Just start to take action that's going to move towards your goal, and you will get there. But don't stay stuck. Don't stay in analysis paralysis trying to make that decision of what to do. Right. Just start moving.
That is so amazing. Just start somewhere. I know you're already coaching every day, meeting people, your neighbors and your friends. You're already coaching, so just start. And then the process usually just The universe, God is so good and faithful that He puts things in your path that will take you towards your purpose. So embrace every one of it and just keep going. So that is amazing. So as we are wrapping up, what is the next step? What is the legacy we are building here? We talked about finance. We talked about coaching, right? What is the next step? What are we building for the future generations?
The future generations, I hope that I can turn inspired by Nadia. I kind of have aspirations to make it into a lifestyle brand. So I think about, having journals and putting together workbooks and activity books that people can use as a tool to get to their next goals. I think about, maybe personal training programs. I do love fitness. So Fit by Nadia, maybe. I don't know. I have lots of things that I think about.
I love it. Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's just ways of enriching people's lives and, getting them inspired where they might feel inspired on their daily basis. Just helping them to feel that passion and that motivation and that excitement.
I absolutely love it. So Nadia, we're wrapping up and we always end the show by give us one life lesson. And what is that one life lesson that you want to share with us that would take us to our positive outcomes?
I think love yourself. Learn how to love yourself. Learn how to love everything about you, whether it's the difficult past that you've had, whether it's the obstacles that you've overcome. Love yourself, celebrate yourself. And when you love yourself, people will see that. People will see that authenticity and they will be attracted to you like a magnet, and you will get things just because you are this magnetic personality that loves yourself. People can sense it. And so again, it's something that sounds so cliche and it sounds so simple, but it can be really, really difficult for so many of us. So learn to love yourself, and I think everything will flow from there.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing, Nadia. Thank you so, so, so much for coming to the show. And guys, please go back and listen to this. Share it with all the leaders in your organization. I will share it with all the people I work with. By Achieving Women, we all need to work with each other and help each other to go to the next level. Okay?
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for bringing all of these positive outcomes to all of us.
Thank you so much. I really love having you on the show. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Positive Outcomes. Follow the show and share this episode to inspire someone's next chapter.